Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for an MP webinar on proven strategies in training and development, grants and engaging remote, hybrid, and in-office workers. I'm Amy Weeman, Head of Marketing here at MP. And for those of you joining us on a webinar for the first time, MP is a full-service human capital management company, offering a complete suite of products and services to support employers through the entire employee life cycle, including recruiting, HR, payroll, benefits administration, time and attendance, and compliance assistance. We support our clients with cutting-edge technical solutions, as well as proactive, reliable service and deep HR and payroll expertise. At MP, we are wired for HR and help our clients succeed by aligning their people strategy with their business goals. I'm thrilled to introduce your presenter for today, Jim Desrosiers, owner of GROWTHco. Jim served in the US Air Force and participated in the Libyan conflict. He graduated with a Master's of Management degree from Cambridge College with a dual concentration in leadership in human organizational dynamics and nonprofit organizations. Jim has authored books, received national awards in training and sales, and was nominated for an Emmy as a television host. Jim also has a strong passion for helping children. Once labeled at risk himself, he implemented his student success program into 250 nonprofit programs and schools nationwide, totaling over 118,000 young people. Jim resides in Groton, Massachusetts with his wife and has three children and 4 grandchildren. GROWTHco is a full-service organizational development firm that focuses on delivering results to its clients. GROWTHco assists clients with designing the right program and provides the training, consulting, and coaching necessary for organizations and individuals to achieve their goals and ultimate potential. Through their own offerings and courses and those provided by best-of-breed strategic partners, GROWTHco is a one-stop success shop for training and essential soft skills, leadership, development, process, and technical training, and all forms of organizational development. Since 2006, GROWTHco has secured hundreds of grants for clients through the Massachusetts Workforce Training Fund. GROWTHco believes only in level 4 transformational development, ensuring participants actually implement and make habits of the knowledge, strategies, and tools provided during their work together. Just a short disclaimer or reminder that this training is intended for educational purposes and informational purposes and should not be construed as specific legal advice. And then lastly, before I hand the mic over to Jim, if you would like to submit a question during the program, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. And we'll be sending out the recording of today's program along with the slides later today. And with that, I'm going to hand the mic off to Jim.
Well, thank you very much, Amy. I appreciate it. And good afternoon, everyone. Or if you're not on the East Coast, good morning. My name is James Desrosiers. For those of you wondering what the MM stands for after my name, I get that a lot. It stands for Masters of Management. And as Amy indicated, it does specialize in leadership in human and organizational dynamics. I've been doing this since 1994, 27 years, and have been through everything from recessions to pandemics even now I can put on my resume. So I am the president and founder of GROWTHco, and we use training, development, and consulting to get you the results that you're looking for. Now, that's about as much as I'm going to talk about me and my company today, because today is all about you, and it's all about what are we seeing out there as far as what companies are experiencing and some of the challenges that are in this new environment that we're all navigating through, and then how to use Workforce Training Fund grants to make sure that our employees are staying productive, but also engaged, committed, and connected to one another. So once we talk about the general grants and the express grants that are available through the Workforce Training Fund program, we will also talk about what is going on out there in business today. What are companies doing to keep employees as effective and connected and engaged as possible? And we'll be happy to answer all kinds of questions and answers. If after that point, you are interested in learning more, either about the grants or about our services directly, sure, I'd welcome any and all phone calls to continue our conversations. But I just want to be crystal clear that the purpose of today is to educate you guys and give you as much information as possible, so that regardless who you use for training, development, coaching, consulting, that we have a conversation and a dialogue here today to talk about what is going on and what is available to your organization. We'd be happy to help you if you think we can add value to your organization. And if we can't directly, we probably know people who can. We have exclusive partnerships with people who do process training, project management training, ISO, Lean, Six Sigma, Black Belt, Kaizen events, while we specialize in personal development, leadership, essentials, soft skills training. So that's all I will talk about in regards to me and my company. Let's get right on to what's going on out there in the world today. What we're seeing in our clients, and by the way, we do serve many different industries, from manufacturing, both products, food manufacturing, as well as pharmaceutical services, professional services. We have seen pretty much every industry: banking, financial industry, one-person businesses, all the way up to Fortune 100 companies. So what we are seeing today as the 5 biggest productivity challenges in business today is employee disengagement, ineffective performance management, tools training and development, ineffective or excessive meetings, and then non-work related reasons. And those are some of the things I'd like to talk to you about today. Let's start off with our classic definition of productivity. Back in the day, they used to think of productivity like an assembly line, where it simply was having people be elements of an assembly line. And we only measured productivity by the amount of time it took to create one unit or one product. And it did not take into account human beings and how we got them to be productive to create the output. And what is missing from the classical definition of productivity is the fact that all of us as leaders, there's so much we can do proactively, intentionally, to make sure that our employees are showing up every single day completely committed and excited about not only the company and the next 24-hour period, but also they're extremely excited about themselves, and they see that they're in a place that cares about them and that they can grow in their career and make more money for their families, for example. So the end result is just not enough. Getting the result should be the byproduct of our commitment as leaders to create the right work environment where people will give us 100% of their energy, their passion, and their commitment to our goals and being the best they can be. So we're going to talk about those 5 productivity challenges next. Employee disengagement. When you think about the word engagement, I want you to think about it from a human aspect. Human beings, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the basic needs of the human being is belongingness. And that means that employees typically don't just go to work to get a paycheck for weekend beer money, for example. They're going to work because they want to belong to something. And that human belongingness is sometimes overlooked when we're so busy and we have so much demand coming at our companies, and we can't find enough people to come to work for us. So we focus on getting the result versus on the work environment itself. And then you put a pandemic on top of that. And what we're seeing is that people who work from home, where they can be more productive, there's also a huge risk that their engagement level will drop because they're working from home and they don't get those water cooler talks, those hallway conversations. So whether everyone returns back to the office or we adopt some sort of a hybrid model where people will be expected to come into the office, but maybe not on a full-time basis. There will be some more flexibility and opportunity to work from home. Or if we go 100% virtual in the future, we must make sure that engagement is part of our strategy, our policies, and our procedures moving forward. Otherwise, people become disconnected from the company, and then they do what only they have to do, and we lose a lot of those elements of teamwork. So organizations that have high engagement, they experience 21% higher productivity from workers. So we need to continue to identify those opportunities to help people continue to improve themselves and to work on themselves, their team, and their company, not just their to-do lists or try to clear out their email inboxes every day. Human beings also need acknowledgement. They want to hear about their successes. They want to feel proud of themselves. They want to be able to brag to their family and friends as to what commitment they are making to their company. When you have engagement, you don't just have employees' productivity, you've got their emotional and psychological connection to the organization as well. Next, we have ineffective performance management. If we improve our ability to clearly state goals and expectations, daily and weekly targets that people on our team need to have, and we create the right communications and tracking systems to effectively monitor and discuss the progress towards goals, and provide coaching along the way to improve performance and behaviors, then we can increase productivity by 5 to 10%. Gallup says that 50% of our workers don't know what's expected of them. One of the assignments from this webinar that I'd like to give to you, if you choose to accept it, is if you write on a piece of paper or if you're taking notes as I'm talking here, I usually like to have a two-way conversation. So me doing a lecture is very unlike how I do trainings and work with my clients. I like to facilitate two-way conversations. But here's what I'd like you to write down. When you go back to the workplace, I want you to have your employees or team members write down what they believe their top 3 most important goals are and what their top 3 highest priority activities are in their day-to-day work. 99% of the time, they do not align with that person, what the person's supervisor thinks that person's goals or high priority activities are. And immediately you see a disconnect between what a person chooses to do every day for behaviors and activities and how they might not be directly connected to what you believe are the most important goals and activities that that person should be working on. It's not just about getting through to-do lists and emails. And in the pandemic, what we've seen a lot in our clients is that each company was struggling to figure out how the pandemic was affecting them, and all of a sudden, some companies forced in survival mode and fighting just to stay in business, a lot of employees kind of stood back and just waited to see what was happening here and how are we going to get out of this and how's it going to change our goals and our vision and what should I be working on today? So a lot of people strictly got into survival mode and just did what they had to do on their to-do lists and what was coming in on their emails. We need to get back to aligning every single team member, every employee we have, to not only what our mission is for today, but also here's when we're going to go now, based on everything that's come at us over the last few years. Maybe your original vision statement pre-pandemic is different than what it is now because of it. And we need to make sure that we're communicating how we're doing going through this pandemic and how this has impacted our vision for the future, so that everyone remains clear on where we are going as a company. Now, when you do that, then we have to revisit the SMART goals. And of course, SMART goals stands for specific goals, not do better, sell more, reduce waste, reduce the expenses. Those are not goals. SMART goals have to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic or relevant to your vision as well as today's mission, and on a timeline. Those SMART goals get broken down into annual goals, which get broken down into quarterly goals, which get broken down into monthly goals, weekly goals, and even daily planning, making sure that every single day, and here's the trick, every single day, employees aren't doing what they have to do or just responding to the outside world or their email inbox. Every single day, we have to get employees to do their highest priority activities to achieve today's mission while simultaneously doing the action items necessary to achieve tomorrow's goals and to make that future vision an actual reality. And moving employees and team members from survival mode to this proactive, productive state of, I know what I need to do now and I'm measuring it. And I also know what I need to do now to help us collectively move this company forward towards a shared, unified, exciting vision. And we're all working towards that. Those are some of the things that we're seeing out in the world, is that companies are still struggling in defining that vision, and how has our vision been impacted? And then how have we adjusted our performance management to make sure employees stay engaged, feel connected, still feel part of the team, and they know what their expectations are now for today's mission and tomorrow's vision and future, and that we've created the system to be able to track it, communicate it, and make adjustments along the way. Next is tools, training, and development. Using training and development to get results is what GROWTHco is all about. We don't just do training, we use training or development or coaching or consulting to get the results you're looking for. If you have a training and development program, it typically increases performance by 5 to 20%. Most employees, again, if they're in survival mode, they tend to not have a documented specific development plan for themselves. In other words, how are you developing every single one of your people to not only be the best in their current role, but do you know where each one of these employees wants to go next? And do you have a documented plan to help them get to their next level of their career? And of course, some of that's going to require training. Some of it will require just coaching. So having talent development plans is imperative. Here's the other thing that I'm seeing out there in the world with our clients, is that we need to hold on to the employees we have. So many of our clients, they can't hire enough people right now. This pandemic has affected a lot of people differently than others. But a lot of my clients are doing everything they can to try to recruit and to get more employees to come work for them. And they can't find enough employees right now. So if we can't find enough employees to come into the company, then we better be doing everything that we can do to hold on to the employees we have. Giving them an environment where they're engaged and they know what's expected of them, and they have written plans for how they can become the best they can be in their current role, and they can see that you're trying to help them get to their next level of their career. Creating a work environment that includes all of those things will hold on to your current employees. Again, going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic needs are only one pillar of that pyramid that Maslow shared with us. And basic needs is provided by the paycheck. We have to give employees all the other things in that pyramid, all the other needs that all human beings have, and that's belongingness. And it is a sense of esteem and being proud of themselves. And self-actualization is at the top of that pyramid, where people go home at night and they realize they're not wasting their time. They're being the best they can be. And they're in a place where they are reaching their truest potential in life for them and their families. So by only providing a paycheck to employees, we're only giving them their basic needs. And when someone else tries to come and recruit your employees away from you to go work for them, if they offer $1, $2, $10 more an hour, they will leave to go try to find those other things that you're not providing them if you're only giving them that paycheck. I have seen some companies who get the work environment right, and they do the training, they do the coaching, they have development plans, they have a servant model of leadership where they're giving the employee everything that they need and everything that they want. And the competitor comes and offers more money, and they say, hey, I appreciate it very much, but there's no way you can take me away from my team. I love this company that I work for. You'd have to offer me a lot more money to jump ship and come work for you. I've also seen some people leave companies to go work for less money because just getting a paycheck simply wasn't enough. They needed everything else that we're talking about here today. Next slide says ineffective and or excessive meetings. We need to identify what we need to have meetings about, and then those meetings need to be absolutely formal. What we're seeing is that a lot of people have the right meetings, but the meetings aren't organized in a way, they lack agendas. And the agendas aren't sent out ahead of time. And if 40% or more of our population are introverts, meaning people who need time to think before they can show up and give you their best work and their best recommendations, if people come to a meeting and they don't know what is going to be discussed at the meeting and they're introverts, they're not going to be able to contribute at the level that they would if they had a day or two to think about what was on that agenda. In agreement, during our meetings, do we all know how to conduct ourselves during our meetings, or are they dysfunctional in many ways? And then the follow-up on action items, having a very specific process during meetings to not only capture what was discussed, but what action items are coming out of the meetings, who's responsible for each action item, and when will each action item be completed by? Who should be invited? Not everyone should go to every meeting. If there's no reason for someone to be in the meeting, guard their time, especially today where we have so much going on and typically not enough resources and people to do the work. Question who's coming to the meeting. And if they don't have anything to actually contribute during that meeting, tell them they don't have to come. And then that you will fill them in after the meeting is over. No meeting Thursdays. It doesn't mean literally every Thursday there's no meetings, but pick times throughout your week where you are going to absolutely block out time to do what you need to do to move yourself towards that mission and your goals and expectations and that future vision that we're talking about for the company overall. I always say to clients, you're never going to be able to find more time or buy more time or get a recipe and make some more time. You got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Probably don't want to spend it all working. So block out times during your week to get the most important things done, and then force the world to work around those blocks. Most of us do the exact opposite. We will give our time to meetings and to conversations or interruptions. And then with the time left over, we try to get the important things done. We try to help our clients flip that on its head, get the most important things done first, and then force the world to fight for the time left over. And then shorter meetings. We have there's a couple of trainings out there, not just the ones we offer, but there's some really good trainings and resources out there that will teach how to get the most out of meetings in the shortest amount of time, and to also make sure that every single perspective is being thought about during those meetings so that everyone has a voice and every perspective is being considered with every decision that you make. And then finally, non-work related reasons. This is a brand new one as of a couple of years ago. We have people, it's the same pandemic, but everyone's in different boats. So we have people who are working from home. We have people with kids, some without kids, aging parents. Some of us have been affected personally with illness. We have all of these different situations going on outside the workplace, and there's no way that people can be negatively impacted outside of work and that somehow that's not going to find its way into the workforce. Their attitudes and their behaviors at work are going to be impacted by what's happening outside of work. So we need to adopt what we call empathic leadership and challenge when we can be flexible, when we can't be flexible, and at least be human beings to each other, especially right now, and especially where you have to hold on to the employees that you have. Emotion and stress management. Unfortunately, every single thing that we teach at GROWTHco, I believe all of it should be taught in elementary school and in middle school to students, so that I'm not working with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s on some of the topics that we're talking about today. Goal setting, time management, emotions, stress management, leadership skills, how to communicate. Why do we wait until we're adults to get these lessons and to get the formal training to be the best we can be? The job is hard enough. You're going to have the stress in your company and your industry. The dysfunction that comes from people's lack of efficiencies or competencies in these core topics that I'm talking about, you put that on top of an existing stress that's not going to go away, that's when we ultimately have loss of productivity, turnover, and an unhealthy level of conflict and dysfunction. The last topic here, you are not alone, regularly scheduled check-ins. Make sure that if people are working virtually, make sure you're connecting with them, even if you've got nothing to say or it's not to drive a specific business result. Employees should not go longer than a few days without hearing from someone on their team or their leader or performance manager. Isolation is real. Depression is real. Suicide rates are going up. We need to stay connected as human beings. And we lost the ability to have water cooler talks with those people who are working virtually. Those hallway conversations or running into somebody during a break or lunch, that's where some of the best innovation took place. So if we're not going to return 100% back to the workplace, we've got to create that environment and hold on to those impromptu conversations where the magic happens. And then there's support and empathy, making sure that we're realizing that a lot of people are going through a lot of different hardships and challenges right now, both personally and professionally. So with that, what I'd like to do, if it's okay with Amy, is to pause there and ask you guys for any questions or comments, anything that you'd like to share about what you're seeing out in the workplace, or if you have any questions that you think I might be of value to answer.
Great idea, James. So just put your questions in the Q&A and Jim can answer them.
All right, so I see one question from Nicole. Thank you for asking. It says, what does HPA stand for? So HPA, I try as much as possible not to do just use letters, but HPA stands for high priority activities. High priority activities. So during our day, we have to do many, many things. Some things will directly lead us towards goals and expectations. and other things are just things we have to do, right? So HPAs are high priority activities, and before a month even starts, I will identify my HPAs and proactively schedule them into the month I'm planning before the month starts. And again, that's going to force the rest of the world to have to fight try to find my time. I already got what I needed out of December, for example. The world has to fight for the time that's left. And most of us do the exact opposite of that. And that is a huge contributor to why a lot of us don't have that work-life balance right now. Okay, I got another question and answer. It says, first, thank you for this. My pleasure. Second, you spoke about HPAs and the top 3 that people must do. Can you write the assignment? I'd love to do that with my team. So yeah, it's very, very simple, Kayon. If you just ask someone to write down their top 3 highest priority activities, if you could give them 3 hours to do anything that they wanted to do, what would they do with those 3 hours? What are the top 3 highest priority activities that would have the most dramatic impact to the company? What would they be in order of importance? While your employees are doing that, you write down for them what you think their top 3 highest priority activities are. And guess what happens when you compare the 2 lists? They never match up, or at least not in the right order or priority. So it's a very simple exercise that will show you how much you're aligned or maybe not aligned with your employees when it comes to getting the important things done every single day. And yes, I will, if you email me after today, I can send you a really easy worksheet to get that done. So thank you for that. All right, anything else? Any other questions or comments? Again, I'm used to always having a 2-way conversation, so the 1-way lecture is a little difficult for me. So thank you for putting up with how I'm pulling this off. Okay, and we're going to have a Q&A at the end of today's seminar as well. And as always, anyone can reach out to me at any time if they have any questions for me or they want me to point them in another direction. After 27 years of doing this, let me just explain to everyone that's watching and listening. I don't sell. I'm looking for companies that have a need, a challenge, or they're not yet reaching their full potential. And I welcome any conversation to just talk about it. And if I can, either through my company or point you in another direction, if I can help you find the solutions and the resources to solve that challenge or to take advantage of those opportunities, I'm just here to help you guys. So I don't want anyone to feel like it's all about sales for me, because it's not. I actually say no to more companies than I say yes to as far as getting new clients. What's my story? No, what's your story? The Workforce Training Fund program. So this was created way back in 1998. It was seen as a crisis in this country. The workforce training was considered a crisis because a lot of companies were leaving our country and they were doing their business elsewhere. What they did was they created a pot of money, and it's called the Workforce Training Fund program. And the purpose was to keep companies in Massachusetts, promote job growth, job retention, and to also increase the wages of workers. And the money is paid for by you guys. So employees, part of their payroll taxes, a very small percentage, goes into this pot. So as long as employees are paying into unemployment insurance through payroll taxes in Massachusetts, they're eligible to get training funds, okay? But you have to tell your story. The Massachusetts gives away about $10 to $15 million a year just in general grants, and another $3.5 to $5 million a year in express grants. It's money available to you that you're paying, but you get it back to train your employees. Now, the state just doesn't give anyone this money. You have to apply for it. And we'll talk about how you qualify, or if you qualify next. But the bottom line is in that application, you have to tell the Commonwealth of Massachusetts a story as to why you need this training. And of course, the state wants to know how they're going to win as well. So as long as we can tell a story that we need this training to achieve these 4 bullets, then the state will look favorably upon your application, okay? So bottom line is, if you increase people's pay, guess what? The Commonwealth of Massachusetts gets more tax revenue. If you hire more people, they get more tax revenue. If you recruit people from out of state to come work and pay into Massachusetts payroll taxes, they get more tax revenue. So they definitely have a win in it for them. So we've got to tell the story, not only why you need the money and how you're going to benefit, but also how's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts going to benefit as well. Good news, you don't have to do this on your own. We do grant administration services, where we've been doing it for over 15 years with our exclusive grant administration partner, and they know exactly what needs to go into that application. And in fact, when we submit an application, we already know it's going to get approved. So if you don't feel like you have to do the application yourself, it can be a full-time job if you've never done it before. We will hold your hand all the way through the process to help you and not make it too cumbersome for you. There's a couple types of grants. What we need to do is make sure that we're measuring your success. So what the state wants to hear is not only about your how what you're going to do is going to benefit them, but also how's it going to benefit you. And here are the typical bullets that they look for in the application. How is this training going to increase productivity, guarantee certifications, increase your capabilities, your performance, increase sales, increase revenue, increase the services that you offer, or decrease waste and expenses? Typically in the applications, and this is only for a general grant, and I'll explain the difference between the 2 grants in a moment. But in a general grant, it takes an application where you have to actually list out the specific goals or KPIs that you will achieve because you're doing this training. And we typically help our clients identify those things they're already measuring so that you don't have to create all new metrics and performance systems, et cetera. Business requirements. Okay. So now this is for both types of grants in the Workforce Training Fund program. That's the big umbrella, Workforce Training Fund program. There are 2 programs underneath that. One's called a general program, one's called an express program. And I'll explain the 2 in a minute. For both, as long as you're a business or labor organization and you're contributing to unemployment insurance contributions, you're eligible. Any company, any size can get either grant, a general or express grant. Another business requirement is that you obtain a certificate of good standing, and that simply means that you are current with all your tax liabilities with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. If you've done a certificate of good standing before, just know that they're only valid for 6 months. Now, we're going to talk just about that general program. With the general program, it's a maximum grant of $250,000 that you can get to train your employees. Companies of any size are eligible to apply. Training programs are completed with in 2 years. So you've got a full 2 years to do this training program. All trainees must be employed in Massachusetts. Now they can live somewhere else, but as long as they're employed in Mass, and here's this is what really clears it up for folks. If they're paying into Massachusetts payroll taxes, they're eligible. Even if your headquarters is out on the West Coast. If you have Massachusetts employees paying into Massachusetts payroll taxes, they're eligible. Applications are accepted and reviewed on a rolling basis, so you can apply at any time. And it typically takes about 2 months from application until you hear whether or not that you achieved the grant. Okay, now I know you're going to have some more questions that we'll answer at the end. Let me tell you that both programs, the general program that we're talking about right here and the express program, they're both considered a 50-50 matching grant program. However, your employees, you can use their hourly pay, how much they get paid on an hourly basis, while they're in training to reduce your 50% match. And in almost all of our situations, if you have enough people in the training classes, there's no out of pocket for the client with the general program. You know, again, depending on how many people are in each training, their time times how much you pay them per hour is part of your 50% match. And then there are other things that qualify to lower or to decrease or eliminate your 50% out-of-pocket match besides time. And we can talk about that later outside of this webinar. There's just not enough time to do that. Okay, so that's the general program, and I'm sure you have questions, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end. As I mentioned, 50-50 matching program. It must be done during normal working hours. There is quarterly reporting with the general program. Remember, the general program, a 2-year program. So this is where you want us or whoever you choose to use as a training provider, you'll want someone to go into the company and do the right assessments. What is your company need? What do your individuals need? And you lay out a 2-year training program. So it's a much bigger commitment, from anywhere from $10,000 up to $250,000. So the general program, again, it requires that application that talks about goals and KPIs, and it tells your story as to why you need the training and how it's going to help you over a 2-year period. So because it's so much money and it's 2 years worth of training, there is quarterly reports. There are quarterly reports that need to get done for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it's typically reporting how you're doing towards those KPIs and those goals. So you're basically updating them on your progress towards those goals. Again, we have a grant administrator that will work with your internal person to make quarterly reporting back to the Commonwealth easy, so that, again, it doesn't become a full-time job. It can be very overwhelming if you do this by yourself, especially for the first time. So we, as part of our services at no additional cost, by the way, we provide you with a grant administrator that's there to support you from application all the way through quarterly reporting, all the way till you have to close out the grant and be done. So don't feel like you have to do this by yourself if you're overwhelmed. How it pays out. So let's say you get approved for $200,000. You will get 25% immediately upon approval. They will send you a check immediately for 25% of your grant. You use that up, so nothing out of pocket yet, right? At the end of that, you do that quarterly report, and then they send you the next 25%, and you use that 25%. You repeat the process, and they send you another check for the third 25%. nothing out of pocket. At the end of that third 25%, at that point, you upfront pay the final 25%. Then when you finish training, we submit the final report, we close out the grant, and you receive that 25% back from the state as a reimbursement. Here's why they do that. It's a 2-year program. Pandemics happen, economies happen, all kinds of change happens. Some companies get acquired by other companies. Some companies just simply run out of time, or they took on too much training. We make sure that doesn't happen, but it does happen. The state doesn't want to give 100% of the money out, and then a company doesn't finish the training for any of those reasons, and now they got to chase all these companies back for that last 25%. So that's why the final 25% has to come from you up front, and then you get reimbursed if you, for whatever you used for that last 25%. I hope I'm being clear on that. Okay. The Express Fund, okay, different program. Companies of any size can apply. If you have less than 100 employees, this says 100 or less. It's actually less than 100 employees. You will receive 100% reimbursement for the training. 100% training is paid for. If you have 100 employees or more, you'll receive 50% reimbursement. You pay for the training up front, you do the training, and you get reimbursed. That's how the Express Fund program works. Typically, it is a smaller commitment by the company. It might be 1, 2, or just a handful of trainings, not a 2-year training program. And because you're paying the money up front and then getting reimbursed, the application process takes less than 5 minutes online. There's no reporting requirements whatsoever. It's you apply, a week to 10 days later, you get approved, you pay, you do the training, you get reimbursed, and you're done. It's super simple and fast because it's typically 1, 2, 3, or a handful of trainings, not a 2-year training program. There's no application deadlines. Decisions are made within 2 weeks. I'm seeing them made in under a week. The Commonwealth Corporation is a third-party administrator of these grants, and they're turning these around so fast because companies need this training so badly. Again, same requirement. All trainees must be employed in Massachusetts. Same as the general fund. Training programs under the Express program. The general program, 2 years to complete the training program. The Express program, your trainings must be completed in 1 year or less. The grant award for an Express Fund program is $3,000 per person per course. I'll say that again, $3,000 per person per course. And the company can get up to $30,000 a year in grant money. Okay. You can use both the Express program and the general grant simultaneously. And the general grant used to have a 1-year waiting period. So if you finished a general grant, you'd have to wait an entire year before you can apply for the next one. And because of the pandemic, they have eliminated that requirement. So you could actually end and close out one grant and the next day apply for a new one. So those are the main differences between the Express Fund and the general fund programs. Again, if you've got a small training need, 1, 2 handful of courses, the Express Fund is easier to get as far as application and reporting requirements and administration. If you're less than 100 employees, it's 100% reimbursed. Employers 100 employees and over, 50% reimbursement. The general grant, much more commitment, much more planned out 2-year training and development program for your employees. All these grants that I'm talking about, or both of these grant programs that I'm talking about, can not only be for personal development, essential soft skills, leadership type programs, they can also be for process related project management, ISO 6 Sigma, Kaizen events, manufacturing type process improvement training as well. English as a second language is also definitely well received by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They help there, and also in a lot of situations, even computer technology improvements, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, even those types of trainings we've seen get approved in grants, as long as we can describe why these skills weren't provided previously as basic parts of people's education or what they're expected to know as employees. And I can explain more if you're interested in that. I can explain that in the Q&A. So I hope I wasn't being too confusing or overwhelming. It's a lot of information, but it's pretty simple once you understand the difference between the two programs and eligibility. And we have secured now in 2021, because of the pandemic, by the way, a lot of people are using these grants to make sure that people are staying committed, that we're continuing developing our employees. And they're also using it as a forum to get leaders and employees at all levels talking and increasing their trust in their relationships. But it gives people a forum to simply discuss what's going well, what's not going well, what could we improve, and what do we need to change in order to not only meet today's demands and work environment, but to be the best we can be and to drive this company forward to our future vision. So the forum we provide through training isn't a lecture like this. They're workshops, and people roll up their sleeves, and we'll put content and processes on the table and then get your people to actually work on them and discuss how can these be relevant to me and my job or to our company. And then they leave the training implementing new tools and processes that we expose them to in the workshops. One thing I highly recommend, whether you use GROWTHco or any other training company, is to do your trainings in a transformative format. In other words, instead of doing 2 full days of training in a row, 16 hours over the course of 2 days, that's knowledge-based training. You must spread out the training over time. So if I have a 16-hour course, we're going to teach it once a week for 4 hours for 4 weeks. And then that way there, people kind of start to zone out after 4 hours. So at 4 hours, they've taken in as much as they can take in. But the most important part is you're now giving them the opportunity to leave you and go and implement and try new things in the real world. And then next week they come back for the next session and they report back. What did they do? What did they try? What worked? What didn't work? So we're guaranteeing that transfer of knowledge from the classroom into the real world. And then they get to make additional adjustments, and we give them more content, and you repeat that process over and over again. So it's guaranteeing the permanent change in not only attitudes, but behaviors, activities, and processes until those new habits become permanent. So with all of that, I'd love to open it up for any questions and answers that you might have.
James, there are a few questions in the chat. People were inquiring about grants available in other states, specifically California. Someone else inquired about what the grant size was.
Yeah, there are a lot of, you might want to check with your local workforce investment boards for those different states. A lot of different states have programs and training programs. They don't all have the same requirements. and eligibility and amounts available. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts was the first to introduce a workforce training fund program, and I don't know of any other that provides 100% of the funds. So I would say check with your local towns as well as states for that information. I don't know how many other states have similar type programs. All right, excellent. And then I see a couple more questions here as well. We are a nonprofit. Can we get a grant? Maybe. Nonprofits, when they're organized, they have two options to either pay into unemployment insurance or to not pay into unemployment insurance and be exempt. So again, the key is if your employees are paying into mass payroll taxes and specifically unemployment insurance contribution as part of their taxes, then yes, nonprofits absolutely can take advantage of these grants. All right, here's another one. If our employees work in the state but live out of state, can they count toward the grant? Yes, as long as they're paying into Massachusetts payroll taxes, they're eligible. How long does it take to get approved for a grant? Good question. So the general grant, because there's a bigger application, goals, KPIs, you're asking for a lot more money, they can typically take 2 months to get approval. You can apply at any time. You don't have to apply at certain times of the year, anytime. Express grants, you're looking at a week to 10 days. They say 14 days, but I've seen the average has been about a week to 10 days to get approved. Oh, here's a good one. Can only workers who are in Massachusetts and included in the grant application attend trainings? Yes, we do not have like a bouncer at the door. I mean, everyone has to show their proof of their identification or their payroll stub. Only the Massachusetts workers who are paying into unemployment insurance will count towards your 50% match towards the grant, but you can certainly have other people in the classroom learning alongside the Massachusetts workers. They just won't get credit towards your match, if that makes sense. Let's see. If you are in New York, try New York City Department of Small Business Service for customized training. So thank you, Kayon, for sharing that resource. Kayon said, if you are in New York, then try New York City Department of Small Business Service for customized training. Not sure about Washington State, Tara, so I'm sorry I can't help you there. Again, you might want to just look up and contact somebody at your local workforce investment board. All right, and is there any other questions? What's the grant size? So again, the general grant, you can receive up anywhere from $10,000 to $250,000 for that 2-year training program. And the other Express Fund program is up to $30,000 per year the company can receive. And the only other limitation to the Express Fund is that employees, you can only get $3,000 per employee per course, up to that $30,000 maximum that the company can receive each year. Okay. And, oh, here's another question from Liliana. Is there a list of acceptable trainings for the Express program? And the answer is yes. So if you Google or go to the Massachusetts Workforce Training Fund program, and specifically the Express program, there's actually a library of pre-approved courses. The courses in the Express program have already been vetted by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So all of our courses, for example, we've been registered with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for over 15 years now. So they've all been approved and we've been audited, and they check with our clients to make sure that the courses are awesome. And getting good feedback, and most importantly, delivering the results to clients. So yes, there is a full directory of courses available and approved on the Massachusetts Workforce Training Fund Program website. Great questions.
Looks like we're at time here. It's 2 o'clock.
All right, excellent. Then I will turn it back over to Amy.
Great questions, everyone. Great content. Thank you, James. And thank you, everyone, for attending. Just a quick reminder, we'll be sending out a recording of the webinar along with the slides later today. Please join us on December 2nd at 1 o'clock for an informative webinar on the Great Resignation, addressing best practices and strategies to retain your workforce. Visit our website to register and see the full calendar of upcoming events and available resources. We also recently released a new ebook detailing the many different HR compliance considerations for your remote workforce. Thanks again for joining, and thanks, Jim. Have a terrific day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It's been my pleasure.